All right, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started here. So, most of you here on the call have been on the call that you're about to watch. You've pushed back on an increase, you've tried to hold the cost line, and at some point, you've wondered what the person on the other side of the table actually knows about plastic. Well, today you're going to find out because you're going to hear it from me. Here's how this is going to work. Tyler, you're going to be the buyer. I am the supplier rep. So we are going to negotiate. Then we're going to stop. We're going to have one of us enter the cone of silence where we're going to put on headphones and can't hear a word while the other one tells you all exactly what he's thinking. Then we're going to come back and finish the negotiation. And by the end of this, you're going to know more than either of us did when we walked into the room.
I've been on hundreds of these calls, and I'm excited to have you all here to critique, to learn, or for my Hamilton fans out there, just to be in the room where it happens. So, welcome.
All right. So Vandelay Plastics, part of Vandelay Industries, of course, who, for all you Seinfeld fans out there, has apparently gotten into applications other than fine latex goods. An injection molder, 10 million pounds a year in resin between polypropylene and ABS, and it has a few other SKUs that you can see kind of on the bottom here. The main polypropylene comes through my distribution business, Veridian Dynamics, on PGP plus 11 cents, which is a spread that we set 18 months ago. And as we enter a Q4 contract renewal, is what's on the table. So it's a fictional companies, but a real structure and real numbers that you've seen in the market. In this example, Tyler buys a lot of different types of material, but none of those specialty resins are currently on contract. And it's not directly on the agenda as we meet to talk about the biggest line item, which is that polypropylene.
And I know what I need to get out of this call, and I'm taking the attitude that if Michael can't deliver, then I've got some more canvassing that I'm going to have to do to hit my aspirational 2027 target. So my negotiation style is going to be curious, allow the negotiation to evolve as the discussion does. And I'm looking forward to this. This is what I do. So let's get started.
Let's get started indeed. All right. Well, good afternoon, Tyler. It's great to have this meeting with you. And this is actually really great timing on the renewal. Before we get into the polypropylene, though, I do want to put it right out there that this year I want to talk about more than just the polypropylene. I think there's a chance, a real opportunity to simplify things for you and get better pricing across the board on the SKUs that you buy. Are you open to that today?
Hey, look, I appreciate that you have a mission to grow the business and to talk about Verdian Dynamics as a whole, but right now I want to focus on the polypropylene renewal and go from there. So we're looking to basically re-up an 18-month contract, same as last time, but really it's price that I want to talk about. So what can you do for me on price?
I hear you on the price, and given where propylene has moved, we're proposing PGP plus 11, which it is the same structure today.
Okay, well, that's um that's an offer. So you're saying there's no concession on the adder. I mean, I've been buying resin long enough to know that neither you or I are going to impact what's happening on PGP. I appreciate that we're following the market, but it's that 11 cents that you want to roll over. That's going to be a tough one for me. So I guess just let me be clear about something up front because I think it's going to start us out on the right path here, which is that Whatever you're buying this from the producer for, I'm not asking for that number. I understand that that's a different relationship. You're a distributor, you're working with a producer. I'm not asking you to open your books all the way, but I do want to look at that 11 cents a pound adder directly because, you know, just a couple of pennies on 9 million pounds is a significant contribution to my overall goal. And when I look at the benchmark that we have for this volume at this plant, even through distribution, we're seeing that PGP plus 8 is the right number. So my question to you is, if we have a benchmark at PGP plus 8, and you're saying that PGP plus 11 is still a good number, how am I supposed to go back and explain that to my CFO?
Well, listen, I mean, Tyler, I need to understand when you say benchmark, where is that coming from? What is that? PGP plus 8.
Well, whether I got that through a competitive bid or through my own proprietary sources, either way, I'm not going to argue where my data comes from. If you want to correct me and show me that that number is wrong, that means that the correction lives in your data files, not mine.
Well, listen, Tyler, I mean, I'm not prepared today to open our book, and but I'm going to tell you something that, I find myself saying a lot is what's wrong with benchmarks, right? I mean, a benchmark is an average. That number doesn't know specifically your freight lane, it doesn't know your order pattern, and it doesn't know the inventory that we carry for you.
I can appreciate that. It is specific to our business, but if that's the case, then let's talk that all the way through. So you said there's freight, there's our order and the pattern of our ordering and our service. So, I mean, you pick the one that you think makes the biggest difference and break it down for me. Help me understand why this doesn't work.
Well, I mean, there's the freight component for one. I do realize that you're not that far away, but that's a real number that we have cost impact on, and your order pattern is for an account your size a little bit more frequent, and um, you know that's the reality. When I look at across my mental, thought of similar clients that we have that are your size.
Okay, well then let's pick freight. What's that cost to you then?
I, I'd have to go back, Tyler, and look at the exact number and lane to give you something I'm confident in.
Okay, but we agree that there is a number to it. And you just don't have it in front about it. But what about, okay, you said ordering patterns. I understand that when we need a PO, we kind of just place it, you service it. Um, if we were to improve that process, what's that worth to you?
Yeah, that's a real number. I just can't put anything on it sitting here. It's a discussion I'm going to have back with the home office and my sales director.
All right, well then here's where I'm at. You've named two things that are inhibitors to us achieving the PGP plus 8, which is where we need to be, but you've not put a cost on either one of them. So my benchmark has a number. I have the volumes, and I'm not asking you to give anything away. I'm just asking you to meet where the current market is at our current benchmark.
Listen, let me be straight with you, Tyler. I hope you'll respect it. PGP plus 8 exists in the market. We know that it does. We have that agreement out in the market, but that's a very different scenario than the one that we currently have with you. You have a lot of additional aspects of support and service that those accounts don't. And if you want that price, or do you want the program? Which you have to, what do you choose?
Then quote them separately.
Meaning, meaning what exactly?
Okay, so we have material at PGP plus 8, and then line item the program. For every additional cost, let me know what it is. Because if listen, if the freight is worth however many cents, I'll pay that. But what I'm not going to do is sign up for an adder that's just all encompassing of margin and all of these other costs that you're telling me and just lose visibility to it. I can't do that. Um, and while we're here, I do have three questions for you, which is actually, do you stock this grade? on our behalf, or are you just basically drop shipping it right from the producer?
We do stock some of it, yes.
And is this resin on a bigger program with your producer? Like, is there a volume tier that you're buying into that I'm a part of?
There are program considerations here.
Okay, well then one last one. Am I negotiating, and don't take this the wrong way, but am I negotiating with you on this or am I being channel managed? Because if your producers already made up their mind on what this lane is going to pay, then let's just flesh that out now so that I can make sure I'm having the right conversation with the right people.
Tyler, that's not how I would characterize it.
Okay, so that's not a no.
It's not how I would characterize it.
All right, well, okay, so I think you understand where we're at on polypropylene, what I need there, and I don't want this to just be a price beating up negotiation. I want to just change the temperature for a little bit because I don't want you thinking that this is just one directional. Okay, we want to be a great customer here at Verdi and Dynamic, and here's what I can do. If we can get this renewal right and hit some of these specific targets, I think I can help you by putting you and your technical guy or gal in front of my engineering team. I can commit to like a 2 day on-site. We can host you where we're going to look at all of our materials that we have, and you can see if there's opportunities for us to qualify alternates or maybe uh, whatever it is that your engineering team and my engineering team wants to discuss about how we can potentially grow the business. So that's access you've never had before that I'm happy to give you if we can get this right. Um, I'll give you we can commit to a rolling 6 months forecast instead of the current PO process right now. That's something that we actually have already committed to elsewhere, and we can extend that program to our business with you. And then finally, if we can kind of get through this, it's not predicated on a number. I'm not saying if that, then this. I'm just saying if we can get through this negotiation and land in a fair spot, when I look at what I can offer as far as growth, I can also introduce you to our sister company who buys quite a bit of resin, and I've confirmed that none of it is through your distribution channel either. So opportunities to come on site, opportunities to expand the network, and we can do a little bit better on the planning. So like I said, none of that's saying you the only way to get there is on a number, but it's part of how this entire negotiation goes.
Well, listen, Tyler, I mean, I really appreciate that. I know I had mentioned to you at the quarter one renewal that, I had some new goals to, pull my corporate resources in. And I appreciate you putting that out there as well, genuinely. Uh, thank you. Let me take this back to my sales director and we'll see what we can do.
That's great, but I do have to tell you that on Monday I have to give an updated report to my boss on how 2027 is shaping up, and this negotiation is a key part of that. So I'm going to need a response by Friday at the latest.
By Friday, you'll have it.
All right, thank you, Michael.
Tyler, thanks for your time. All right. And scene,
I'm going into the cone of silence. Just Michael, give me the signal when it's time to come back.
I'll give you the signal when it's time to come back.
All right.
All righty then. Well, that didn't quite go as I had expected it and put together in my pre-call plan. This is an account that I've had for 2 years and never really had to defend the spread against an actual number. He had one this time, and he just very annoyingly wouldn't tell me where it came from, which I part of me respects, but part of me kind of hates it, and I couldn't get a grip on it to kind of poke away at it. Then there was the channel management piece of this. Nobody ever asks about that. It's not something that's kind of well known in the industry. He's asking whether I even have the authority to move, and the honest answer is less than he thinks. And this is what really got me going about the whole thing is he spent the whole call on the polypropylene. He hasn't mentioned the nylon or the PCABS, not even one time. And I guess why would he? they're not on the contract. And I mean, I guess the renewal date prompted the polypropylene conversation. So nothing really ever made him think about it or look. So here's what I'm going to do. He's almost certainly going to ask me for a rebate. All my customers typically do. And I'm going to tell him that I can't rebate the polypropylene, which is completely true. And then I'm going to offer him a rebate that has the nylon in it instead. He's likely to take it because a rebate's going to feel like a win from where he's at today. And for me and us, it puts the nylon on an 18-month agreement at today's price. Looking back on the call, he actually additionally gave me something I can use. I did have goals to get into the organization more, and access to his engineers is a real value. Rolling forecast, that helps my supply chain. So here's my pitch when I bring this back to my sales director. It's going to be, I need the 9 cents to make this work because this account is about to get much bigger. And I'd rather be on the inside than on the outside bidding against whoever is also calling on Vandelay Plastics. That's how a sales rep gets something approved and not by complaining about how annoying Tyler is to negotiate with. We're going to bring you back, Tyler.
Hello, hello, hello. Good.
All right. I guess that means it's my turn.
Sweet. Michael's in the cone of silence. Now I get to chat with you a little bit. First and foremost, there was no shot we're getting PGP plus 8. No shot. That's like direct from the producer numbers. Um, I mean, it's possible, but I definitely anchored low on that one. So I don't know where Michael's head's at right now, but the let me take it back to my boss is not a no. And usually that's a good signal because if Michael was able to just say, hey, yep, love it, let's do it, let's, where do I sign? That's almost a guaranteed signal that you did not ask for enough because if you've asked for enough, it oftentimes is going to need internal review on the seller side. Um, and a rep with absolutely no room just says no, but if he says, I'm going to go back and check, it's usually a good sign. So I like where this ended. And also, I did put a hard deadline on his response because I don't want this to be an open-ended, long conversation and they get distracted with something else, or heaven forbid, markets, the Strait of Hormuz closes between now and when Michael gets back to me. That would be a disaster. So there's a little urgency here. Um, so there's also the cards that I haven't played yet. Right now, I'm negotiating polypropylene because, like most buyers, that's the biggest line item. It's the one that moves the needle. I haven't even talked about what Michael opened the conversation with, which was, how do I get more business? How do I extend my business with you and buy more line items? You're going to have to win that off of this first line item that's most important to me. Then we can go down and then we can evolve this and start to build up a bigger program. But I need that polypropylene win first. So. Um, and the rule on this one is for him to get access to the rest of this, he has to come back with some type of move. So if he comes back and says 11's the best I can do, or 10 and a half or something like that, it's a non-starter. This guy's obviously not willing to negotiate with us and get us into even close to where our benchmark was. Um, so as far as I see it, he has to give a little bit of a concession, and then we're going to open this up a little bit further. So last thing I'll tell you is I mentioned that PGP plus 8 was a bit of a pipe dream. I think PGP plus 9 is absolutely what I want to walk away with. 9.5, I could take it, but at a half penny, I'm going to push it all the way across the line. So, and one last thing, if you go back through the call that we just had, I never told the guy no. I didn't just stop him. I asked more questions and I asked them in a way that he had to answer them and made him a little uncomfortable. And that's how you can kind of be a hard negotiator without actually damaging the goodwill in the relationship. We're going to need Michael next year because he's our main sales guy, and we don't want to make an any enemy out of him or think that there's no opportunity here. We just want to push him and ask him a lot of hard questions so that we can get to the right answer. So we'll see what he comes back with.
All right. Just jamming out to my favorite pre-call audio slave song, Show Me How to Live. So
I'm gonna have to write that down.
it's a good one. All right. We are going to jump back into this. All right, Tyler, thanks for meeting with me today. I went back. I can do PGP plus 9.5, and I can look at the ABS if you're deciding to move it. It's a real move, and I'm excited to get to work with you on this.
Okay. Well, the number we asked for was PGP plus 8. I'm not sure how you got to PGP plus 9, let's call it. Um, as I think about that, let's talk about this. Um, the ABS that you mentioned is, currently not on your line card. You're not servicing it at all. It's 1 million pounds a year, and every pound of it sits with another distributor. So you carry the same grade, or a similar grade, I should say, from a different producer. And actually, over the last year, our internal engineering team has gotten samples of that, ran it, it worked in our plants, and we're actually fully qualified and ready to switch. That, along with the fact that our other supplier has gotten pretty complacent on price, makes me confident that if you were to bid on that business, it's quite likely that with an aggressive bid that you're going to be better priced than they are. And that is volume that we can and are capable of moving. And I know that that's of some interest of you, as you mentioned, you wanted to expand your portfolio with us. So you would go from being kind of the main polypropylene distributor with some of these other cats and dogs that we have through your business. Now you'd be taking over as a key distribution partner, which is a much improved position. Um, we can do that. Again, I'm going to stick hard on the PGP plus 9.
Well, I can work with that. I know I was just clear about 9.5, but with this new information, 9 is certainly doable.
Okay. All right. Well, I think I can sell that internally. I think I could sell 9 internally. They might ask why it's not 8, but given some of the price, factors that you've mentioned, even though you haven't broken them out specifically, I think we can work with that, and I can sell that story internally. But there's a couple other things that I want to talk about as it relates to the polypropylene business. And it's not about price anymore. Now it's around the things around it. So three of them, and none of them are price. Number one, in polypropylene, we're on a contract like -1 settlement. So whatever month it is, we're paying on like a 30-day lag. And we've got a feeling that markets are going to be falling through most of 2027. We don't want to be late to the trough on all those movements. So my first ask is let's do a current month price for polypropylene.
I hear the ask, and Tyler, the answer is no. And I want you to take this the right way. And honestly, you don't want that. PGP doesn't settle on a fixed date. It's very fickle in that way. Some months it's on the 5th, some months it's on the 20th. If we price current month, half your invoices are going to go out with a temporary provisional price, and then it's going to get rebilled when the settlement lands. Your AP team is they're gonna hate you, man. It's not gonna be a good situation. Mine is going to be frustrated as well. This is how the whole industry does it, and it's the only way to invoice a number that's actually final.
Okay, so that sounds like it's an industry constraint, not just a Vandelay Industries constraint.
It's a best practice.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. Well, um, I hear you on that, but there's still two others, which one of which is the rebate. Um, so right now we're looking at, around 9.8 million pounds of business. I would like a rebate tier that is at 9 million pounds. So it's one that I want in there that you should plan to pay and I should plan to earn. I want it to go all the way back to cent one at 2 cents. And then I want an additional rebate tier at 10.5 million, which represents if you win the ABS business on a competitive bid, then the entire portfolio is going to have a 3 cents a pound rebate.
It's going to be a a hard no on it, Tyler, and I can't do it on the polypropylene specifically.
Well, that's where it's worth the most.
I hear you, but at +9, I'm making a small fraction to service the account. It's the honest math, and if I rebate the PP on top of that, I'm going to be underwater on that type of volume. It's not something that I can get signed by anybody here.
Okay, well, assuming that that's true and that your margins really are that tight on PGP +9, can we design a rebate for all of the other resins?
Here's what I can do, Tyler. Here's what I can do. I can put the nylon and the PCABS onto the agreement right alongside the ABS that we've talked about. I know we haven't talked about those first two resins, but this is another area where we can help you. And I'll write you a rebate on all of the non-polypropylene volume. We can do 2 cents. It's money that I actually have to help you out there.
Okay. All right. Well, no, I think that that works. To be honest, I've got some incentives to get contract spend under contract. So going from spot buys to under contract and part of a rebate program, that actually is a pretty big win for me. Um, I mean, what about pricing on that? I mean, is there any price concessions happening in the nylon or the ABS space right now?
Nothing materially. We would come in with an aggressive bid and get you where you need to be and write you up on that proposal, get it under contract.
Okay, but without an RFP going out for this whole thing that I'm not sure that we're as eager to do right now, the pricing would be
Yeah, I mean that's fair. We talked about PGP +9. That
for
would
the
be
nylon. I'm sorry, for the nylon and the ABS and all that. Like the pricing there, is there any concessions in the specialty resins that you can offer?
um, ABS is going to come in at 91 cents, which I think is going to deliver some cost savings from you, from what I understand. And we'd add the nylon and PCABS pricing that I can get quoted to you, and again, there would be a rebate on top of that that you would get.
And that's 91 cents, not 90 cents, not 88 cents.
91, Tyler. I love the persistence, but I can't lower. I can't go any lower than that on this new account setup, which would be that part of the volume. I need to see what this looks like. We all hope. Hope is not a strategy. One of my sales leaders tells me that we have to see what this actually looks like.
All right. Um, I guess the third thing I want to talk about was payment terms. So for payment terms, we're currently at net 30 on the account. I'd like to do net 60 with a 1% 15 or a 15-day 10% early payment discount. 1%. Sorry, I messed that way up. That was a very aggressive ask, Michael.
I was gonna say it ain't happening anyway, brother. I can't
Oh,
do net 60. It's just Viridian dynamics. It's not possible. But I knew you were gonna try to do this at the end, and I got pre-approved net 45. That's what I can do for you.
all right. So just to recap, we're going to go down 2 cents from +11 to +9 on the PGP for the polypropylene. We're going to ideally transfer the ABS business from the current supplier to you, where I'm getting a little bit of a cost savings on the 91 cents that you're quoting, which you claim is, the best you can. We're going to roll over the nylon, and then we're going to have a rebate structure in two tiers, back to pound one for everything, but not including the polypropylene because you would be underwater on that. And we're going from 30 days to net 45.
Yeah, yeah, you got it. That's what I have noted down here, and I plan to send in my summary back to leadership. We've got a deal if you are in agreement.
All right. I think this is what I can sell internally, and we can get this done.
Well, listen, I appreciate your time today, Tyler, and I'm excited to get to work with you in expanded capacity as we move forward. Thanks for
Thank
your
you,
trust in
Michael.
Viridian Dynamics.
Thank you, Michael.
All right. Have a nice one.
Scene.
All right. So now we'll do it together debrief, Tyler. What do you think?
I like that.
All right. So before anything else, you know, we said we would walk at 9.5, right? Walk at 9.5. There was kind of that you wanted to push for the penny more. We got this thing done at 9, and whatever else happened in there, you did the thing that almost nobody does. You just decided that, what your number was before you heard mine and in front of everybody. So, um, I guess let's take a tally of what you got. You summarized it um, during the conversation, but 2 cents on 9 million pounds, 180,000 on the specialty grade. That's another 16,000. ABS, you were at 97 cents a pound. Now you're down to 91 on 1 million pounds. That's 60,000. And then the rebate, which is 1% on the rest of that volume that's not the polypropylene, another 32 grand. So you're coming out in a pretty good spot, and net 45 terms, right? Which is that additional advantage. So if we're keeping track, that's $288,000. He asked for around 365. You got most of what you asked for, Tyler, and you beat me on the thing that you came in to fight about. Now,
So 288 is about where that stacked up then?
think so. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so my goal was 300, but I'm always, setting too tall of goals and falling just short, but shoot for the stars, land among the moon or whatever that is. Um, Malapropisms abound here, but yeah, I thought that was almost where I wanted to get to. But the other thing that I get to go back with is the stories of it's now spent under contract. We now have a preferred supplier. We also have a history of concessions now with you. Did I get all of the maximum concessions ever possible? Maybe not.
Right.
But we've started this narrative that we have a partner that is willing to come to the table and negotiate. And now, if we need to shop further places, we have that, and we have more spend under contract, and a rebate tier we didn't establish. So I think that that's a lot of wins on the procurement side in this scenario.
A lot of wins. And I want to go back to the rebate. I mean, there was the idea that we couldn't rebate the polypropylene, and that was accurate. And so having that rebate on the business that there was margin to be given on, that was a win for us. And the price of that rebate was just putting in two additional lines on an 18-month agreement, at the number that we defended today. And what I didn't share with Tyler was that the nylon was running about 6 cents a pound over where it should be, which it has an impact for us as well, right? It was a good guy of over 50 grand, and now I have that locked in for 18 months. So there was a little bit of horse trade on the win that Tyler had, and for the rebate, right? I still came out ahead, and he thanked me for it at the end of the call, which, you know, I told you, I had mentioned to everybody out there, right? When Tyler was in the cone of silence, that was the plan. There were, you know, it's just, yeah, I think there were some comments that you all were making to yourselves, right? Like, you know, but anyway, Tyler, I'll let you take it from here.
No, just that from my position and a position I've been in a lot as a buyer is that I had a good number for my main line item, that polypropylene. I knew what I had to hit. The nylon, the ABS, I was trusting you to kind of assume that I was as informed as I was of the polypropylene side, right? Like if I just ask what's the best you can do or how do you do it, whatever you gave me, I was going to take because I didn't really have a good benchmark or anything to fight back with or to beat down on those line items. And again, with my goal being 300 grand and I was almost there, with most of that being in the rebate and the main line item. it was a bit lower priority for me to make sure I went through every single one of those. So if I'd had maybe better info or my buyer's sheet would looked a little bit more complete, maybe I could have done a better job, but I just didn't have the ammo to fight you on that one.
Yeah, I didn't think you did on that one, and that's why I wanted to really make the conversation more about that, and then the polypropylene where is where I was giving way.
Well, and I mean, that's just like another way of saying, you know, I'd sign the PP deal again tomorrow, but I did everything right on the technique and I still walked straight into that ABS and nylon extra adder that I just gave you for 18 months because you can't evaluate an offer on a line that you don't have a good price for. It's another way of saying you can't negotiate your way out of not knowing. So the
Well
things
said.
I would say, maybe to take away some of my key moves here in this was one, the benchmark I just talked about, why that's so valuable, and we saw it in action. Two, questions. If there is a key to negotiating, it is unraveling and unveiling what the other person doesn't want you to know or is trying to keep away from you. So instead of just saying, no, I can't do this, or you must, or thou must, or whatever, ask a lot of questions. Okay, I hear your point on that. Tell me more. How do we break this down? What does this look like to you? Um, Finally, one of my favorite moves is the carrot. Sometimes, you started that first phone call, got a little bit heated because it was just like, I want eight, I want 11. Well, you can't. Well, we won't. But eventually you have to say, there's definitely things that I can offer for very cheap, like hosting a supplier that has real value to you, or implementing, if it's a rateable piece of business, having some good forecasting is not a overly expensive thing to offer. So it's kind of the benchmark, asking a lot of questions, having that carrot, and then wondering what the cheap levers are for you and for us. So also, it sounded like Michael's cheap lever was an extra 15 days on payment terms. He said, no chance on 60, but I can give you 15. Well, I'll take 15 if you can give 15. And that also creates a little bit more goodwill in the negotiation as a whole.
And I've got to sneak one in there, Tyler, to mess up the four takeaways. I want to add a fifth. Frustratingly, you never told me no, not once. I mean, you asked me questions that I kept having to answer, and I obviously ran out of answers and didn't do enough on my prep. That makes it quite a different experience, a much different call to be on than somebody just yelling about price, right? I've got thick skin. I've been through that, right? I can take it. So, um, yeah. In closing, right? One page with all four of those key takeaways and the questions to ask is going to be going out to everybody that registered today in an email follow up that you'll get by the end of the week.
Yeah, and if you think you can do better, then I would love to see it. We're going to be running this exact scenario at the MAP conference in Indianapolis on September 29. Um, we're going to host, we're going to have a big conference room. When we walk in, we're going to have a seller's sheet and a buyer's sheet. We're going to change the scenario up just a little bit, but you'll have your own opportunity to use these tools and all the ones that you bring to see how the result might end up for you. So it should be a great time. Looking forward to seeing you there.
And you can get the links to that in the chat. Definitely sign up and we'll see you at MAP. And if you hang out later that night, you can have some fun with us and play some blackjack and understand exactly what it means to have the odds stacked in your favor as the buyer. With that, we're going to open it up to any questions that anybody has from the audience on anything you've seen today. And thank you, Jim, for tuning in. Guess while we wait for any questions, Tyler, I had one for you. Um, were you overall pleased with your result? I know there was the win. We talked about the polypropylene win, but I mean, what's maybe the number one takeaway that you would pull out of the conversation we just had and use to get better next time?
Mm. Well, I didn't like how how some of my questions didn't get me anywhere. And I mean, this happens sometimes, right? Like when it was like, well, what was your benchmark or where are you getting your data? And you're like, I'm not going to tell you. Okay, well, what's the freight worth? I can't say. All right, well, what's the PO's timing of orders costing you? It's a real number, but I'm not sure, right? And then it's kind of like me making this demand and then you kind of saying, well, it's not going to work, it's not going to work, it's not going to work. I'll go back, I'll figure it out. That can be a little bit frustrating. So if there was a way I could ask those questions in a way that either lets your guard down a little bit more, or maybe we had a little bit more trust to kind of collaborate to find a solution, I think that I think that's where I've seen like some true negotiation magic is when both parties kind of, put the weapons down and we're like, no, I'm really just asking like what's freight worth? And then
Right.
it's like, well, I actually know exactly what that's worth. Here it is. And if you want to go quote it out on your own, you're welcome to do that because sometimes there's advantages. Maybe you have your own internal, logistics arm, or your cousin happens to own a resin trailer, like maybe there's some way that you can look at this piece of the puzzle and by gaining some of this information, break it apart differently and make more savings. So I think if there was a takeaway, it would be finding a way to build a little bit more rapport in this short, truncated amount of time would be nice.
Yeah, and I was going to answer because I was thinking about the question myself, and for me, the relationship piece is one I agree with you that would have been great to spend a little more time on. For me, it would have been spending more time in my pre-call plan. I mean, I clearly was not ready for the level of sophistication that you brought to the table, and you know, needed to, maybe look at my own sales sheet earlier, right? And think through some more questions that you might ask me. Just because you didn't ask them last time doesn't mean you're not going to, have access to new information. So for me, it was an emphasis on the preparation.
Yeah, and also, if I were to do this again, I want to make sure that I get the wording right on, like I don't want certain line items to be totally subsidizing other line items because then later you can put yourself in a real trap where you end up taking away like why am I paying so much for this ABS anyway, and you take it away and then the rep goes, well, that was paying for the polypropylene business I was making for you, right? And then things can get kind of messy, so I wanted to make sure they weren't built on top of one another. But I see we've got a question here maybe.
We do, we do. I did want to say thank you to Chris, Raymond, and Michelle for the kind words as well. We did have a question, Donna. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I apologize if I'm not. We will be sharing the video of the conversation out via email in the follow-ups, so you all have access to that, and you can definitely share that. We'd encourage you to share it, and hopefully your teams find value from the conversation. Tyler, it looks like we got another question here from Trish on you and the prep. So you went in with a goal of 8 from 11. Where'd you get that number, man?
Well, I was lucky enough to get that number from ResinSmart, so shameless plug on this one.
I
uh my
knew you were
company.
talking to somebody that was helping you. I knew it.
Shameless plug. So, in this scenario, Veridian Dynamics is a client of ResinSmart, and they went to ResinSmart and said, "Hey, here's some."
It's Vandelay. Viridian's
Oh,
my team.
Veridian's you. Vandelay's me. My
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, yeah.
It's the two V's. We shouldn't have done two
We
V's.
shouldn't have done that. We messed it up. We confused each other. Yeah.
But no, so it was that was a ResinSmart number. But in reality, the way that this process actually works for those on the call would be if you engage with a benchmarking exercise with ResinSmart. We're going to break down what that resin is chemically, what, over 100 years of resin buying procurement knowledge feels like feels like has some methodology behind what current market prices for something like that would be. We already have models that know what the freight is, where distributors have distribution centers, what rail car costs would be. If there's glass filler in that or antimony trioxide or any other additives that really make things kind of difficult to pin down. That's exactly the transparency that we at ResinSmart bring to the market. So in this example, it was meant to highlight that with this one polypropylene grade, I had all that in front of me. I was confident that was a number that was fair based on my consulting partners' uh, well-informed opinion. Um, and I didn't have that for some of the other ones. So that's where that came from. And it's important when you say, when sales reps are going to push back against that number and say, oh, that's not real, or maybe it's real, but that's only for the Goodyear or something maybe gets that price, not you. Okay, fair. But then that just is a Chris Voss-ism, which is show them the wrong data point and let them come back to you with an explanation of, well, what it really should be and why. And then, of course, in the resin buyer role, you have the ultimate leverage to be able to talk to as many salespeople as you want to get as many quotes as you want. So if Michael says that number's BS, it's 11, forget, go pound sand. Great. Then I called Jay and Bob and John and Nick and anybody and Julie and Ashley and everybody else to say, all right, well, what else is really out there? And then you're going to start getting I think in time you could eventually hone into a similar price. So that would be my long-winded answer on that one.
I just think of our owner, Bill Bowie, and what he says when you were talking about the end there, right? Talk to many, buy from a few. Hopefully, me at Viridian Dynamics here. Um, Great. And thank you for the kind words, Jesus Alfredo. Really appreciate that. Um, Let me see. Do we have one more? Oh, we do have another question from Brian. Better practice to tie PGP over HPP. I'm guessing that's homopolymer. I may be interpreting that question wrong.
Oh, yeah. No, I think he's asking, is it better to tie to PGP than homopolymer index?
Ah, I think so. Brian, if you could clarify, otherwise, maybe answer the question under that assumption.
I would say it depends on your volume tier, to be honest.
Yeah.
One thing I like to say is if you buy spot resin, you're either like, oh, what was that movie? Enemy of the State, where Gene Hackman says you're either very, very smart or incredibly novice, right? That's how I feel about people who buy spot and polypropylene. You either really know what you're doing, or maybe there's a better mechanism out there. And I would agree that I think right now industry best practice is probably tying it to PGP. And that's
Yeah.
mainly just because then you're not relying on indexes to call what the spread is on homopolymer, which is where we've seen most of the non-market adjustments occur. So if you're
Yeah.
really good and you're on top of it, either one can work.
Yeah. Most of our client conversations are regarding PGP conversations. So that's
Mhm.
what most folks are doing. Question for Michael. Okay. Was it worth to try to start your pitch with PGP plus 10 and then take it down to 9.5 through a rebate? Eduardo, that is a great suggestion. If I think about hindsight always being 2020, I probably did get a little maybe greedy at the start, back to the pre-call plan. Maybe I just didn't do enough and assumed that I could just roll it over where it's at and build the rebate structure, to take it down to 9.5. To your point, certainly one way that I could have done it. I think the other thing that we didn't talk about, but I certainly did when I was a sales rep, had a new business target as part of my compensation plan. And new business is often incentivized within a lot of these types of organizations. And so I was kind of laser focused on that piece and that added margin that I knew or that I felt more confident I could get Tyler in a position to lock that in and get that added. And that was worth more to me. And so I probably conceded too much on the PP and didn't have the greatest strategy, but it was influenced by my own selfish desire to hit my new business target.
Yeah, and I feel there's like that study of like if you're given $10 and you get to divide it up between you and another person in any denomination, what would you do and why? And would the other person accept it? And it's like it's supposed to be like, well, you could just give them $1 and they would accept it, but emotionally that doesn't feel very good. So sometimes irrationally you'll just reject the deal altogether, right? That's how I would feel if I went through all of this to say, I'll do better planning, I'll introduce you to folks, I'll bring you on site, I want to work with you. If I give you all those signals that I'm really trying with you, and you come back and you're like, I'll give you 1 cent, I'm gonna be like, okay, this guy's you're not even serious. Like, I'm not doing this 3 or 4 times with you and being and offering all these niceties. Like, I'm doing that to get your best bid. Did that cross your mind at all, Michael?
Oh, it definitely did. I mean, you were, and maybe that speaks to the relationship we did have, right? That maybe it was better than relationships can always get better, right? But yeah, I mean, you were putting real things on the table for me, and you know, I trusted that you were going to follow through on that, and I had no reason to believe otherwise from the track record, and so that absolutely gets met with some reciprocity on how quickly do you go to align on that priority, especially when you can go back to the business and sell the win, right? And the win being aligned with personal priorities, business priorities. That's why it is really a great best practice for a buyer, of course, to get relationships built strongly between vendor and buyer, but to understand the incentive alignment, the structure, right? What does winning look like for them? And if you can structure a proposal like that as a buyer, it really adds a lot of leverage that you may not otherwise have ever understood.
And would you have offered the PGP plus 9.5 if this was just an email RFP?
Oh, no way, man. Are you kidding me? No way. Those email RFPs, you can smell them from a mile away. You're not getting anything out of me. That was a long-winded answer, reporter. I hope you appreciated the passion we had there. Looks like we have a very specific question about Michelle. Michelle, we're going to take that one offline, especially because PVDF is a material I used to sell Kynar, but it's been a little minute. I know Tyler's got some thoughts, but we'll get back to you on an email on that one.
Yeah, gladly.
All right. Well, right on. I think we've got to all the questions. We're going to go ahead and call it. We really appreciate everybody's time and attention and for being a part of the conversation. As I mentioned, we will get the email out with the recording, the transcript, and some of the specific takeaways from today's session. And definitely, last thing I'll say, another plug for the Manufacturers Association of Plastic Processors benchmarking event. Definitely, if you can make it to Indianapolis on September 29th, we'll see you there. And everybody have a great rest of the week. And as Kevin McCarru says on our team, purchase wisely. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.